This episode of History Saver is brought to you by Addressing Gettysburg. Addressing Gettysburg is a podcast that shares great experiences, quality programs, awesome guests, and is a welcoming community for all who love Gettysburg. So join in with host Matt Callery and find out why Addressing Gettysburg is one of the top-rated podcasts online today. You can find them on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Castbox, Podbean, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and on Instagram, Facebook, and of course, right here on YouTube. So check out Addressing Gettysburg today, where history is not boring. Thank you to Addressing Gettysburg for sponsoring this video.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
So in this episode, of course, we're still battling traffic, as we always do, but we are still here in Kennesaw as well, and we're just a short distance away from our destination, which is directly across the busy street that you see behind me here in Kennesaw, and it's Cheatham's Hill, the site of the dead angle, the site of the carnage that's going to be the center of the battle here in Kennesaw, Georgia. We're going to take a little hike, we're going to go check it out. And we're going to talk about the actions of June the 27th, 1864. That's going to occur right here in Kennesaw. So let's try not to get hit by a car and go check it out for ourselves. So as with anywhere that we go, there's always historical markers that help you guide the way, and it helps us guide the way everywhere I go. Because I don't know everything, guys, despite what you think. I don't know everything. I'm still learning along with you guys. That's the reason why I do these videos. And here is an important one, talking about the 5 federal brigades who would be in this position on June the 27th, 1864 at 8 a.m. And they're going to assault the Confederates of Hardee's Corps, who's going to be posted on the wood line directly across this road. And they're going to run from left to right. They're going to be Kimball's, Wagner's, and Harker's brigades, Newt's division of the 4th Army of the Cumberland, McCook's and Mitchell's brigades, Davis's division of the 14th Army of the Cumberland, all Army of the Cumberland troops. Kimball and Wagner will strike Claiborne's left. Harker, McCook, and Mitchell will be centered on the salient at an angle right of Cheatham's division. The assaults were in parallel regimental columns stretched out across the field. And these and similar ones will all launch at the same time by 3 brigades at Kennesaw Mountain, which is 2.5 miles away from us, pretty much north, and they will fail to break Johnston's line. Now, up under this point, Johnston is now, well, he is desperate when he arrives here. He is desperate to hold out, and he's going to attempt to make another final stand here in Kennesaw. And McCook's brigade is also going to be in this position. McCook's brigade is going to stand at an angle in the breastworks of Cheatham's division, which is Hardee's Army of the Cumberland, and that's going to see, of course, famous Confederate General Patrick Claiborne. He's going to be in that position. Their Confederates there are going to be entrenched. They're going to have abattis out in front of them. They're going to have headlocks position on the trenches, and they're going to have a strong defensive position. McCook is going to be one of the 5 brigades that are designated to attempt a breakthrough here on June the 27th. His 5 regiments will form on then the wooded slope of this side of the stream, which is in front of me. There will be 4 in a column of regimental fronts, 1 advanced as skirmishers. The assault was toward an angle, down the hill, across the stream, and up another hill to the slope beyond. The objective, the only brigade of 5 to reach it, where a close-up line was held until Cheatham withdrew on July the 3rd. McCook's men are going to go through hell in this position. And we're going to take a walk in McCook's brigade's path right now. So on the day of June the 27th, 1864, at 8 a.m., we're a member of McCook's brigade. We have just made our way down this hill that you see directly behind me. We're making our way to this position. In front of us is almost a sheer cliff. And that is where we're going to be tasked with attacking that. That is going to be the position of Patrick Cleburne and Hardee's Corps of the Confederate Army. They have strong positions dug in there. They've got abattis, they've got headlogs, and they've got strong entrenched positions that they can hide behind. And we have this huge hill, now known as Cheatham's Hill, named after General Cheatham, that we're going to have to attack. Now, if we're a soldier in McCook's brigade, it is the summer, June 1864, and it is hot here in Georgia. We are in wool uniforms. We are sweaty. We are getting dehydrated. We have a ton of equipment with us. We have rifles. And we are starting to come under skirmish fire as we hit this spot. These woods are thick. The undergrowth is thick with vines and briars, and there's snakes, and there's all kinds of elements to contend with. As we look down in this direction, we see our enemy entrenched on the high ground. We have the task of going through this, coming back up that hill, and charging that position. Once we reach this spot, we start getting into a really dedicated line of battle here. And then we are going to make the assault down this hill and up the other. So where you're looking at right now is going to be the launching off or the stepping off point of Dan McCook's assault on Cheatham Hill on the 27th of June 1864. We have just marched down the hill you see directly behind me, and we have come into this position, and now we're forming. We're fixing to launch our assault against a strongly fortified hill directly in front of us. In a lot of videos, I'm giving you historical background, the units, the places, but in this one, I wanted to do something a little bit different and actually walk the ground in the exact footsteps in this episode of one of General McCook's men of his brigade. Now, this is treacherous terrain. On the 27th of June, 1864 is hot. We've got woods we're contending with, briars, vines, well, even snakes, and the terrain itself, which is very, very unforgiving. Now, as we're launching off from this point, as a member of General McCook's brigade here, we have the first element we're contending with, which is this creek. We have to cross this. And then, well, our enemy lies in front of us, and we're up under fire the whole time. So as a member of McCook's brigade, well, I just launched my attack with the brigade right on the ridgeline you see right behind me. And now we're down in the creek. Now this creek could provide a sense of cover for maybe a short time, as Confederates are entrenched on the high ground, if you will, that you see behind me, of which is Cheatham's Hill. Cleburne is up there. He's got strong defensive positions. He's got abattis. He's got trenches dug. His men in those trenches. They have headlogs. They have the red Georgia clay to help them build defenses to hold back 5 brigades of Federal infantry who are attacking from these positions. McCook's men are going to be in this exact creek bed, in this exact position where I am now, looking upon that exact same site. They're getting ready to, well, face a formidable enemy who they're going to have a lot of trouble attacking. And it's going to be hell to pay. So let's continue our trek in the footsteps of McCook's brigade as they assault Cheatham's Hill. All right, so June 27, 1864, we just come out of this creek bed that you see right behind me. As a member of one of McCook's brigades, men here, and we didn't have these nice bridges. So we can't just gallop our way across a nice footbridge until to the, well, arms of our enemy. But we have to fight the elements. After fighting the elements of coming through this wood line, up under, well, skirmish fire and fire from small arms and even artillery, we find ourselves in these positions, standing at the, well, front door of Patrick Claiborne's men. We're emerging as one of McCook's men from the wood line here, and this is a bucket list moment for me, guys. I've always wanted to do this here at Cheatham's Hill, and we're going to emerge from the wood line just as McCook's men did. And at the top of that ridge is Confederate fire waiting on us. And we have to make our way up to that position. And you can just see how steep this terrain is. This terrain is the same terrain from 1864. And it hasn't changed in this position. So you can imagine being a soldier, walking through here, taking on fire as the Confederates are up there just firing down. This is a cool moment. Now, as we make our way across this field, I'm reading some of the accounts that I've read before of some of the men who made this charge. And one Indianan would describe the action here, and that he would say they mowed us down by the hundreds as the infantry fire from the Confederates were pouring in on this position. As the 14th Corps would come through this area, they came up under artillery fire. And Cheatham had placed 2 batteries south of the hill. And the Confederate infantry would open fire into McCook's troops here. And they would open fire when they were about 60 yards away. So we're getting close to that point now. 2 cannon whose embrasures had been hidden by brush also fired in these positions. Some Federals got close to the enemy works, and Colonel McCook himself would stand on top in front of us at the rebel parapet, urging his men forward, and he would be shot in the chest. His soldiers are going to grab him. They're going to take him to the rear, and not long afterwards, well, Colonel Oscar Harmon of the 125th Illinois would take command, and he would be shot 5 minutes later, and he would be wounded mortally here. Not long afterward, that McCook's plan fell apart. One soldier put it, somehow we lost our grit, and the Federals would start withdrawing, some more quickly than others. Some men came rushing down this slope, and crowds breathing hard. They would be up under fear, physical exhaustion, and, well, they would falter this attack. In Newton's attack, some Federals got close to the enemy parapet before they fell, and those who were not shot hit the ground as well for safety. Not because they were being shot at, but because they were scared of getting shot. Charles Hawker, who is a brigade general here, would be on the white horse. He would ride to the front of his brigade, and he would yell, "Forward, men, to take these works." Well, then he would be shot in the arm and chest. So it is a bloodbath here in this place. The men would fall back, running over and trampling each other underfoot, as one soldier would describe. A number of Northerners too close to the enemy line to get back safely was simply surrender. Now, many of Claiborne's men rose out of their ditches to get a better aim on these easy targets, and by 10 a.m., 2 hours after this attack started, Newt's attack was over. Casualties would number 654 men, including General Harker, who would die at 1 p.m. Claiborne believed that his division only lost 11 men. So, we're going to go up and continue in McCook's footsteps. Let me tell you, this is a not an easy hike, but one I've always wanted to do. Now, after the fighting here, Lieutenant Colonel William Martin, who was a Confederate, would call for a truce so that the Federals could retrieve their wounded in front of the Confederate works. The dry brush would catch fire here, and the ones that were wounded are, well, in danger of dying for fire. And some of them were actually burning to death. And that would happen somewhere along our left here. And during that, the Confederates would gather up some of the Yankee rifles. They would then in return use those. But as these men would retreat back across this field that they launched this attack over, I mean, you could just imagine the carnage that is coming back down this hill with them. It's pretty surreal to stand here. All right, so the hike up here is not an easy one. So could you imagine being up under enemy fire? Enemy artillery once you get about this distance. And, well, you've got Confederates right on top of this hill who are in the high ground in strong defensive positions. And they are firing on you. We faltered a little bit from the original straight line of McCook's brigade, but we're coming back into it now. We have the modern Illinois infantry monument directly to our front. And this is going to stand here in remembrance of the men who would fall in this position, that would take cover just steps away from the enemy positions here. And they also would attempt to dig a mine. So, like Petersburg and Vicksburg, there was yet again another mining operation that was attempted right here. So as McCook's brigade would make their way right here in this position, that attack would stall. The Confederate trenches are less than 50 yards into our front, right behind this monument. Now, they're going to be 50 to 30 yards away. They're stuck here in this position. They come up with a bright idea. Hey, let's dig a mine, throw some explosives up under them, and blow it up. We could take it that way. So they start grabbing plates, cups, spoons, sticks, whatever they could get their hands on, and they start digging a mine right here in this position with a plan of blowing up the Confederate works. And their evacuation, or falling back from this position, is going to falter that plan. But remnants of that original mine that they would start to dig here, just as they done at Petersburg and just as they did at Vicksburg, are going to still remain here today. And you could come and see this spot. And this seldom a missed spot and a missed portion of this part of the battlefield. And it's a really cool piece of history because, well, it just tells you how desperate the troops in this area were to take this position. So we're going to take a look at a few things here. Kind of give you an idea of what you can see. And, well, maybe learn a little bit for ourselves. This is a monument to the fallen. A little marker here from the Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield Park of the National Park Service. And here's going to be where Captain S.M. Neighbor would fall of the 52nd Ohio Volunteer Infantry, Company D. And he was from Newcomerstown, Ohio. He's going to be mortally wounded here. He's going to fall somewhere in this general vicinity. The rebel works are right there, and we're gonna take a walk over here. And this is the ground where these men would come onto the Confederate works. Could you imagine coming over this ground 106 years ago? Wow, pretty neat. Here's where Colonel Dan McCook would fall. Now, Dan McCook had a former law partner of General Sherman before the war, and he saw the adverse odds facing the troops here. And he would recite an ancient Greek poem before the attack. And it was by Horatius, and it was his speech to the men before the attack.
Then out spake brave Horatius, the captain of the gate, to every man upon this earth, death cometh soon or late, and how can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temple of his gods?
Now, Colonel Dan would lead 1,800 men up this slope, but he would not return with them. He was returned to Steubenville, Ohio, and he would die on the 17th of July after he is promoted to Brigadier General. But pretty cool to be think about being a Confederate. Seeing that attack come directly from our front. I'm in this exact spot. This is exactly what they will see. Wow. And I'm going to do what I like to do sometimes on the battlefields, and that is kind of stop and just take it in for myself for a few moments. So I found a downed tree, and let's turn you around. Directly in front of me is the Illinois Monument, and I'm sitting in the middle of the Confederate entrenchments. And I'm overlooking the hill that we just come down. And what I do when I do this is I study the battlefield. I look around. I take some moments of silence, and I look around, and I just think. And I put myself in their shoes, and I studied the battlefield terrain to kind of get a sense of being here in 1864 or wherever I'm at. And I tell you this because hopefully maybe some of you guys will put this into practice when you go somewhere, because it's cool to sit here and just look around. And, this is probably, to me, one of the best research tools you could ever do for yourself, is to go to the exact spot and just sit there. Sit there and look and think, and sometimes even read. So we're standing here on top of the dead angle. You can see where we just made our ascent up to this place down below. And this is the bend in the Confederate line, and this is going to become the battle's focal point here at 9 a.m. on June the 27th, 1864, when thousands of yelling blue-clad soldiers are going to charge from the same direction that we just come up in their footsteps. And they're going to charge across the distant field toward the Tennessee soldiers who's going to be in these earthworks right behind us right here. and they're going to be up under the command of Patrick Claiborne. And the Federals are going to come forward at double time. In successive lines, the Confederates are going to rake the enemy with rifle musket fire. There's going to be artillery spilling down upon them, and there's going to be hundreds of casualties. Despite this, the Union Army is going to continue to surge toward this protruding angle in the Confederate defense line. Union Colonel Daniel McCook is going to be mortally wounded right here. He's going to be on the brink of these works in somewhere of this exact spot. And he's going to be rushing his men forward. Come on, boys! Come up this hill and check these works. And he's going to be shot in the chest. Now, Federals are going to reach out to the southern lines. They're going to be in hand-to-hand combat in this area. Confederate Major General Frank Cheatham's Tennesseans are stubbornly going to hold their line right here. So this is going to be Cheatham's men. Patrick Claiborne is going to be in the area. Cheatham's men are going to be here, who this hill is named after. Major General Frank Cheatham. And he's going to hold the line here. Those Federals are not going to be shot as they attack right here in this position in hand-to-hand combat, but they're going to be clubbed down, bayoneted, captured, they're going to seek shelter, and the Union charge will be broken. There is descriptions of men right in this exact position as they thrust their bayonets into the men who's charging these positions. It is a very, very brutal fight in this area. You've got Cheatham here. You got Patrick Claiborne here. You got so many just men here who are fighting to hold this place. And then the Federals, as we descend down back to where we come from, are going to retreat in the same direction. Many of these men, however, wouldn't retreat with a main retreat as it sounds. They would, well, basically be stuck here, and they will lay here for an extended period of time before they could finally themselves gather up the strength to retreat and make their way back down the hill of which we just come and which we are descending down. So we are now following the footsteps, once again, of McCook's men without McCook, who is now being evacuated off the field and is going to wind up in Ohio back home and die. I believe it's on the 17th of July. Just under a month later, he's going to die at his home in Ohio from the wounds that he sustains here at Kennesaw and Cheatham's Hill. So, pretty cool. So, I am descending down the same paths, well, not the same path, but the same ground where McCook's men would descend from to make their retreat the way we came. And they would, be running. They would, I don't know, it's hard to put into words the emotions that overcome you just coming down off this hill, thinking about the Union soldiers retreating from here. They've been in combat. They are tired from the march up here. They have just survived the fight for now, and they're getting out of here without many of their friends, even relatives, and without McCook. So they are retreating back the way that they come. They are unsuccessful in taking the Confederate works. A lot of these men are scarred from the battle. They will have nightmares about this place for the rest of their life. And it all starts with a retreat down this ridge from which we first ascended to make this attack. Pretty heavy stuff to think about. I want to talk for a minute about the experiences of war and why we discover the interesting features that studying the experiences of war bring us. For me, as a researcher and as a history enthusiast, Civil War history enthusiast, World War II history enthusiast, my main piece of evidence that I like to research, besides the battlefields themselves, like this one, are the journal accounts of the men who actually fought here. You know, their first-hand experiences of what they went through. Right now, for instance, as I'm descending from Cheatham's Hill, which is directly behind me from the dead angle, I've got in my mind right now about the experiences that these Union soldiers of McCook's brigade were thinking as they, you know, about the experience that they just had as they're retreating back from here. Granted, they're probably not thinking about much of anything but getting the heck out of Dodge. But, you know, this place, in this moment, on this hill, is going to make an impression on them for the rest of their life. You know, they're going to have nightmares about this place. They're not going to be able to get this place out of their minds because of all the friends and even in some cases relatives that were lost here at Cheatham's Hill. You know, we are going back over the same ground that we come in here on today, which is the same ground on June 27, 1864, that McCook's brigade is going to advance over to charge these Confederate works. Well, once they charge these Confederate works, they go through all that carnage, that devastation that they went through. They're going to retreat back across the same field and in the same area. And the biggest piece of research as a historian or as a historical researcher that you can gather are the experiences of the men who were there themselves. We could read all day long about people's explanations of battles and what they think happened and why they think something happened and where it happened. But when it boils down to it, the biggest piece of evidence that you're going to have at your disposal are the experiences of the men who actually fought at places like this. So, you know, just crossing this ground right now and, you know, being here, whew, that was a long step down. Being here gives you a sense of how important those experiences are, because it helps us piece together this story, the events that transpired here at Cheatham's Hill. So yeah, pretty cool to think about when you know it comes down to it. And a lot of people, well, they overlooked it. You know, they read the books from, you know, various authors, and don't get me wrong, you know, being one of them, you know, we could put out all the books that we want on the subject, on the Civil War battle, but in the end, the real experiences and evidence that you can gather to understand a battle in a place like this is the experiences of the men who fought here themselves. They were the ones here. They were the ones that went through it. They were the ones who lived through this battle, this conflict, this war. And they are the ones who are giving us the look back into history. And we wouldn't understand a battle here like Kennesaw until we can have those experiences at our disposal. Which is, you know, when it boils down to it, our job as historians to find that information, decipher that information, and to use that physical, hard, historical evidence instead of myth to picture together the events that happened here and piece them together for you to better understand. And it all starts with those experiences. So, I have tortured myself. I am, after months of sitting in hospital waiting rooms, I have gotten a little out of shape of sorts. So today's been a shock to the system for sure. And now I am making my way out of here. And I'm going to go to another place. So, not giving up. But, I'll tell you what. It is hard just holding this camera up right now. Because this was a hike. And it's not over with yet. I am currently retreating from Cheatham's Hill. Quite literally. Back to my car. Over the same exact ground that the men of McCook's brigade did. after, well, unsuccessfully trying to take that. I'm stumbling over words, I know. It's okay, guys, it's okay. So, with that being said, and me out of breath from climbing these Georgia hills, God love McCook's Brigade. This is well, one formidable climb for sure. And the climb back isn't easier. I can tell you that right now from experience. I have today crossed off a major check mark on my historical bucket list for things to do at battlefields. And, well, I would do it again in a heartbeat. Probably will. But for me, right here at Cheatham's Hill, at Kennesaw, Georgia, well, I'm going to sign off. And I'm going to go back to the car. And I'm going to get me a cold cup of water. We'll see you on the next episode of History Saver. Till then, keep preserving history. Stay safe. Don't forget to check out Addressing Gettysburg, the American Battlefield Trust, and of course, Emerging Civil War. We'll see you on the next one. See you then. I think it's about time for me to get a Civil War training regimen. Anybody else out there with me?